It's the elective government that will be making decisions about what the right regulations are for our country. And it's absolutely right that as a result of Brexit we can now do that, which is why we are repealing and reforming over 2,000 pieces of retained EU law, making sure that our statute book reflects the type of rules and regulations that are right for the British economy and will deliver growth and cut costs for consumers, and that's what our reforms do.
Robin Moore.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. A key issue which has haunted Keighley for many decades is child sexual exploitation and grooming gangs. I want to see a full Rotherham-style review into child sexual exploitation across my area, but yet Bradford Council's leader and our West Yorkshire Mayor both refuse to back one, due to political correctness getting in the way, simply sweeping this issue under the carpet. So will the Prime Minister, for the sake of victims, work with me to ensure that our local leaders do the morally right thing and instigate a full Rotherham-style inquiry across the Bradford district?
Well, Mr. Speaker, can I thank my honourable friend for campaigning on this? As I've said before, we shouldn't let political correctness stand in the way of keeping vulnerable girls safe or indeed holding people to account. As he knows, it's for authorities in the local area to commission local inquiries, and I have no doubt that he will continue to encourage them to do so. For the government's part, we've commissioned the relevant inspectorate to examine current policing practice in response to group-based sexual exploitation of children, and the Home Office will not hesitate to act on its recommendations when they are published this summer.
The Chamberlain.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Before I was elected, I worked for a number of years in learning and development in both the police and the private sector, and I'm sure we can all agree that training is absolutely vital to encourage innovation, creativity, but also for compliance. Given that seems to be a particular issue for the Prime Minister's Cabinet at present, will he agree to support my ministerial training standards bill that I'll be presenting later today?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as the honourable lady knows, there are processes and procedures in place for ensuring professional standards across government. With regard to training, what I am pleased we're doing is rolling out the lifelong learning entitlement, Mr. Speaker, to ensure that people at any stage in their career can get access to years of government subsidised financing, to ensure that we have a workforce that's fit to the future and everyone can realise the opportunities that are there.
Steve Bryan.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Owen Carey died just across the river from here, underneath the London Eye, after suffering a severe allergic reaction while out celebrating his 18th birthday. He'd simply eaten a chicken burger at a restaurant, which, unbeknown to him, and despite his asking, had been marinated in buttermilk. Owen's sister Emma, who is my constituent, was in Parliament last week with her dad and her brother for a debate on food labelling and support for people with allergies. They're fighting for Owen's Law, which is campaigning, among other things, to change the food information regulations surrounding allergy labelling in restaurants. It's attracted huge support, so will the Prime Minister meet with me and Owen's family to see how we can be sure something positive comes out of this tragic loss of a young life?
Well, Mr. Speaker, I thank my honourable friend for raising Owen's case, and I know the whole House will want to join me in expressing our condolences to Emma and all of his family over what happened. I will absolutely ensure that my honourable friend gets a meeting with the relevant minister to discuss food labelling appropriately so that we can make sure that things like this don't happen.
Ian Paisley.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Will the Prime Minister instruct his officials to publish the list of 1,700 veterinary medicines that will no longer be made available to Northern Ireland vets and the agri-food sector after the grace period has ended? And will explain to the Ulster Farmers Union why that list has not been given to them, and would he agree to meet with me and the Ulster Farmers Union, go through that list and show us how this has removed the border in the Irish Sea?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as the honourable gentleman knows, when we concluded the Windsor framework, what we did was make sure that there was an extension in the grace period for veterinary medicines to give us the time to find a long-run solution to that particular issue. But the honourable gentleman should take heart, because on the issue of human medicines, which I know is important to him and everyone else in Northern Ireland, what we did achieve was complete and full dual regulation of medicines and a dialogue with the EU to resolve the issues in veterinary medicines, and I know that he will want to make sure that we engage closely with him and the UFU, which we have been doing, to find a resolution in the time we have. But I know he will also join me in being very happy that we protected access to human medicines in Northern Ireland, which was a priority for him and his party.
Tom Hunt.
Firstly, I really look forward to welcoming the Prime Minister to Portman Road for Ipswich Town, Southampton next season. And of course, in addition to Ipswich Town, Ipswich Wanderers have also been promoted. Great news for a town. Yesterday, though, we saw, despite the Public Order Act being passed, we saw images of Metropolitan Police standing around and doing nothing, whilst eco-protesters were wreaking havoc in our capital. Does the Prime Minister agree with us? The moment those activists stand on the road, they should be immediately turfed off the road, like there are in many other countries.
Mr. Speaker, on honourable friends, first observation, all I can say is ouch, but thank you. But I look forward to the game. But on a second, more substantive matter, this government has passed a serious disruption order, which will ensure that police do have the powers that they need to tackle slow-moving protests. It was a power that the police specifically asked the government for. We've delivered it and put it in legislation. He knows what I know, is that the party opposite tried to block that from happening.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Prime Minister, we have 4 million children living in poverty in this country, yet we are the 5th richest economy in the world. So can the Prime Minister say why he would not support universal free school meals for all children to end child poverty?
Mr. Speaker, the numbers are actually as follows. Since 2010, there are 1.7 million fewer people living in poverty as a result of the actions of this government, and that includes hundreds of thousands fewer children living in poverty. And most importantly, because like the Honourable Lady, I do want to ensure that children don't grow up in poverty, but we know that the best way to do that is to ensure that they don't grow up in a workless household. And that's why we have reduced the number of children growing up in a workless household by several thousand, and that is the most powerful thing we can do in the long run to give those children the best possible start in life.
Peter Gibson.
Mr. Speaker, Nancy Spencer from Darlington has raised over £35,000 for St Teresa's Hospice in the last 25 years. Nancy's next adventure was to do a skydive, but having had a pacemaker fitted, her doctor refused to sign it off. However, undeterred, my 80-year-old constituent managed to secure sign-off for a wing walk. Will my right honourable friend join me in wishing Nancy well as she takes to the skies this Saturday?
Well, can I join my honourable friend in thanking Nancy for all her fantastic fundraising work, and of course wish her the best of luck for Saturday. I do wonder if my honourable friend will be joining her, and in particular, many of my own constituents use St Teresa's Hospice over the years, so I know what fabulous work it does. But more generally, the hospice sector supports more than 300,000 people with life-limiting conditions in the UK every year, and I pay tribute to all the staff and volunteers working in palliative and end-of-life care for the incredible work they do.